What's good, everybody? It's Jay Pelham here from Pelham and Jr. and I got a new toy. I think it's pretty cool, and I'm actually really excited about this one, so I figured that I would just take some time and show it to y'all. Our friends at Waves just came out with a new virtual instrument called Bass Fingers. And so what Bass Fingers is a virtual electric bass. And it also has a lot of features and a lot of controls that are designed to help you to dial in the perfect sound or the perfect tone for your production. And a lot of those features not only alter the sound and the tone, but they also help add some realism or some of the mechanical things that are distinctive to a real live bass instrument, to help you get a more authentic or realistic sound if you want to add that stuff into your production. So before I really dive into this thing, I want to go over the user interface. Now, at first glance, you'll see it looks like there's a lot going on, and there actually is a ton, but you'll see that it's actually laid out in a pretty intuitive way. And I won't be able to cover every single part of this interface. However, there's a link in the description that you can click to actually check out Bass Fingers at waves.com if you want to, purchase it, download it, and check it out. And also, if you've used Wave stuff before, there's this help question mark icon that you could click in the top right, and it'll open up a user manual if you want to go in there and really dive deep into the nitty gritty of this plugin. You can do that also. But I just want to cover a few of the sections in this interface that I thought were really interesting, and they were really helpful to me to get the sound that I wanted. The first of those areas that I want to look at is the actual bass instrument part itself up here in the top left. There are knobs here that help you to control the tone and the sound of the instrument itself. So these bottom three control the tone, and then these kind of top two up here, mechanical or the release decay, they help add some mechanical sounds or imperfections in there if you want to add that stuff in there. So let's dig into it. So here, this first knob, it says vintage to modern. So what does that actually mean? So here in default, it's right here in the middle. So I'm just plugging on some notes right here. But if you pull it down to vintage, then I'm gonna increase it. So if you can hear the difference here, modern is very clean. You hear all the top end. You hear the actual like rattle and vibration of the strings here. Versus vintage, it's warmer. You can hear the body, the bottom end almost come up, and the top end rolls off. So you kind of get that vintage sound. Definitely, you could hear, it's almost like I don't know if they're adding some harmonics or some warmth here as well as cutting off the top end, but you could definitely hear the difference in tone. So next one, low boost. It does exactly what it says. So we start here at 0. I'm gonna crank it up. Yeah. So if you hear that bottom end came way up, and I think it's more than just a straight up EQ, because there's an EQ section over here. But what I think they're doing is they're actually changing the tone itself of the instrument. It doesn't just sound like a straight up EQ. And so the next one is sub octave, and this is probably my favorite knob on this whole instrument. So there might be times where you're either the key that you're in or just the bass line that you have, it's bass, but you don't really feel it. It doesn't have that bottom end that you can really feel. And so, to solve that, you might throw an EQ on it. There are a bunch of different plugins you can throw on there. Waves makes a lot. They have like R bass, max bass, submarine to help you do that. But here, right in the plugin itself, there's a sub octave knob, and what it does is it actually adds an octave below whatever you're playing, and you can mix it in. So if I'm up here, yeah, let's come up here. So I'll turn it up and you can hear it. Yeah, and it's real fat now. I don't hear any like artifacts or anything like that. Because you can maybe add a pitch plugin, but it doesn't sound perfect. But here, it's super clean, and you can get that sub that you really want in your mix, even if your bass isn't like super deep or super low. So up here, we get into these controls like release and decay. These are more like aftertouch type things. And I really just have to play it for you to hear. So let's crank the release setting. You hear, after I let go of the string, it's a really abrupt sound that gets added after I release. In the middle, obviously, you don't hear any of the effect here. But then I crank it up to decay. It's almost like a metallic. Well, I guess the strings are made out of metal, but you can hear that's like a ring that happens after you let go, versus this really abrupt, almost muted sound here with the release. And so I am not a bass player by any means, but again, one thing that's really hard to replicate in a virtual bass is the realism. It's the action of how the fingers actually interact with the strings and the frets, here on the neck of the bass. And so these can kind of help you add that into your MIDI. Again, here's like a mechanical knob. I'm just gonna crank it up and let you hear it. It's kind of hard to hear, but it's almost like a whooshing sound. And so I think, like, to me, and again, I'm not a real bass player, it almost sounds like the sound of a finger moving across a string. Yeah, you can hear it real good right there. So it's like when you're changing notes in between, you get that kind of sound, if the finger moved across the string. I think it's kind of cool. But again, you can just turn it all the way down if you don't want that. But they're just giving you more options to help you to achieve a more authentic sound. Another thing that I want to cover here are all of these cool pedal and effects here at the bottom. And so if you look here at this, I guess, power panel, whatever you want to call it, these are different bypass effects, and it's actually really cool because not only there's a method to how they're laid out. So this is actually showing what the signal chain is. And so the tone here is the guitar itself. Then the signal chain moves on to these effects pre. And so the first 5 of these effect pedals are right after the guitar, but they're before this amp module here. And so, right after the signal chain moves past these, there's the amp, there's an EQ. You can actually choose different amps here. And you can toggle through these and see how they affect the sound. You can mix them in. You can mix in like the direct sound. And then right after that, there's these are post the amp. And so there's the delay as well as a reverb module. And they're pretty intuitive. There's not a whole bunch of controls here. There's also a limiter at the end, and you can adjust the output gain. But diving back into these pedals, there's a compressor, and so you can just change the ratio here. The ratio is like right below. And amount, I assume it's just almost like a mix knob. We come over here to overdrive, and there's like a button you can like virtually stomp these things. So I just click it real hard. That's me stomping it. There's a mix knob here. It says from 0 to 10. I assume it's just like 0 to 100%. I'm gonna just crank it up so you can really hear it. Yeah, so you can get real crazy with the overdrive. And if you've noticed, I've cranked up the gain here, but the actual output gain didn't really change. And there's this limiter here, I think, is to thank for a lot of that. But this plugin does a really good job at helping you to control the output gain and still get the sound and the tone that you want without having to do a lot of stuff outside of the plugin, which I think you'll see is a common theme here. You seem to have everything you need here in this plugin. Keep moving on to wah. straight up wah effect. There's a lot of cool knobs and different parameters you can adjust here. There's a phaser, so I can crank that up. Again, it's real clean. You can dial it in to exactly how you want. I'm gonna turn these off so you can really hear this chorus. I think it's cool. And to me, it's not just the chorus. It almost sounds like it's widening the sound also. It could just be an illusion. I could be wrong. But if we A/B it, is without, that's with it. To me, it just sounds wider somehow. I don't see a width control on here, but I feel like that's what it's doing, just based on what my ears are telling me. But you can use all this stuff if you want to. And then let's move on to the knobs that come after the amp. So here's the delay. So straight up delay. Nothing too crazy, real intuitive, and there's also reverb. So I could crank up the mix here. Again, nothing too crazy. Sounds really good, sounds warm, and there's only 2 knobs to dial it in. The last thing that I want to cover is, you might see this little piano icon here. If you click on that, there are notes below the playable area on the keyboard, and you can assign these notes to, it's called the key switch editor, but they're like different samples and different effects that go beyond just the tone of the bass instrument. So you can have slides up, you can slide up, down, you can slide fast or slow. There are different effects like harmonic strums, and you got like dead notes, you got squeaks. There's tons of stuff in here. I'm not a bass player, but if you really can map these out however you want to and master playing this thing, you could come out with a really authentic bass sound using this thing. So I think what I want to do is, I'm going to take this one right here. I'm going to have a fast slide down. Just put it on like the A string. Just see what it sounds like. And yeah. So again, if you get this thing, you can go crazy with it if you want to. And there's tons more that I won't cover in this video, but let's just start right there and see what we could do. Actually, I think I like this chorus. I'm going to keep that on. I'm going to take it easy on the overdrive, turn that off. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to see what I could do, in a session. I dropped in a guitar loop from Mellow Hues 3, which is a pack that just came out last month. And there's a link to it in the description, to pelhamandjunior.com. You can check out Mellow Hues 3. And there's tons of other loops and sample packs that we have to help you to, come up with that perfect sound in your production. So I'm going to let you hear this guitar loop. Cool. So, real cool guitar loop. And I'm going to see what I could do on top of that. Let me get my metronome in here. All right. It's a little rough, but let me quantize that real quick. Now let's check it out. Nice. So let me turn off the metronome. Let's go back in the bass fingers and see if we can just dial in the sound a bit more. It's a bit loud, so I can't just turn down the fader, but I'm going to actually adjust that output. I'm going to crank this limiter a little bit because I want to kind of really glue it in. Let me see if I can turn up the bass. Low boost here, a bit more sub-octave. Yeah, like that. Goes down. Roll off the high end. Yeah, I like that. Let's play around with this overdrive. So we can create that. Alright, I think that's good. And look, I can sit here and play with this thing all day, but as you can see, there's so many different controls, so many different options here. But what do I really think of this thing? My assessment is that I think it's a really cool, it's a really capable plugin. I think the thing about this plugin, Bass Fingers, that helps it to stand out from the crowd really is the fact that everything you need is right here in this plugin. All the effects here, they're really intuitive. They sound really good. There's tons of controls here. There's tons of different things you could do from a MIDI standpoint to help bring out the realism. Yeah, you can adjust the tone really well. And you can even do stuff like, you can change where the position is along the neck, and there's tons of different MIDI functions. You could transpose, do all that stuff right here in the plugin. And so I feel like some of these parts of the plugin alone, there might be other things out there that might rival that, or where you could get a similar tone or similar sound. But altogether, as a total package, I don't know if there's anything out there that really has all of this all in one plugin right at your fingertips without even having to do anything like outside of the plugin. And so, I think for that reason, it's definitely worth checking it out. Again, the link to Bass Fingers is in the description below. That's Pelham & Jr.'s like official Waves link. So if you click that link, you can, check out waves.com, check out Bass Fingers, all the other cool stuff that they have on their site. The link to Mellow Hues 3 and all our sample packs is below as well. Yeah, and so I think this is really cool. I'm really excited about what Waves is doing. I think they're really trying to notch it up a bit in terms of their virtual instruments. Their effects are really cool. I think everyone has tons of their stuff, but I think they're really trying to step the game up in the virtual instrument department. So I'm excited about that. So as always, this is Jay Pelham here from Pelham & Jr. And yeah, till next time. Peace.